That's where he's all back together. We, that place is for the first thing called Olympics of the Mind. And it was, yeah, it was this two-part or odyssey of the mind. And the first episode, and then the other was all improv. It had to be a visual element, it had to be a brain element, and we did it for Catherine. And this was back in the 80s years old. And it was all about like Republicans and stuff. And we had this little revolving, it was like, nuclear war and stuff like that.
Alton just was referring, we were talking about those sacred connections, those people, that you just knew. I was talking about it takes a special person. And he was referring to the person who was, like I met when I was 11, but he said, oh, it's a squirrel wrangler. Because Mike was saying, the person that understands you, and I said, that takes special people to understand the real us, doesn't it? And we're getting to know a little bit more about the people we're sharing this space with, aren't we? And it's, as I said last week, it's a heartbreak for me to say, stop this sacred chatter. It's awful. I guess, we continue. We bring Catherine and we bring Heidi back up. I know Maggie wants to come up. I mean, certainly, if you want to plop her on some of Nancy's bread, we're good. And we're going to take some of your questions. And again, let's turn our attention to the folks up here. And then we will close with our, and then just corner these curiosities.
Hi again. So inquiring minds want to know some questions. So first of all, how many books do you read in a year? What kinds of books? And who is your favorite author?
Well, I have to say, with the little kids, Ray reads far more than I do. He is much better, and he has really good taste. So I live vicariously through a lot of his reading right now. Although to be fair, some of his books are from my shelf. Yes, I don't know. I mean, I read differently. So like, I choose one or two books a year to like live with, right? And then I just read furiously for work. So then I don't know. I go through 100 or something a year, but that's not reading. I read one or two. So this year, Professor and the Madman is great. Got it for me. It's fabulous. Madman. It's about it's what is it? Something murder, and the making of the Oxford English Dictionary. Yeah. And before last year, my favorite book was Furious Hours, which was also I can't remember all of something fraud and the final trial of Harper Lee, and why Harper Lee never did manage to publish another book after To Kill a Mockingbird. Right? It was fabulous. And I tend to go for reaction.
Yeah, I have to say that Ray gave me one of my favorite book recommendations of the year. So, were you ever afraid you would fail?
All the time. I still think I probably will. I mean, I do fail all the time. I guess that's. Oh yeah. Well, that's. I remember when I was going to boot camp actually. I got really into the psychology of failure, right? Because that's what could break you down and build you up. And you're supposed to understand what failure feels like and all these things. And I was like, oh, that's so exciting. Way to go, learn how to fail. And then I sure did. But I remember giving a chapel talk because I was on the faculty at our little school in Texas, and I was the head of the chapel for my chapel talk, and I talked about the spirituality of failure, be afraid of it, and all these things, and then I really did it. And I don't know, I we're so uncomfortable with it, and I do think that the editing thing makes that more helpful. Like I'm more comfortable with it because you change. The other conversation I remember having at boot camp, with besides the I'm going to go get a PhD in English, was my roommate, who they were talking about like not being able to face their peers, like they wanted to. It was my roommate. It was one of the other roommates. You don't care, but saying like I couldn't face people back home because it would be such a big failure. And I was like, oh well, first of all, like most people are really excited if I fail out of boot camp. They weren't real thrilled about this choice, and also I don't know, just who cares? Like we read another story, and I remember thinking that because I was thinking about this podcast series that NPR had aired the year before, that was on narratives and how that like saves us, and it's part of the grieving process. And when we have a loss in our lives, part of the like recovery process is because we're in the middle of a story, we're always trying to tell ourselves stories about where we are, and so when that story changes, it's just shattered, disoriented, and we don't know where to go. And when we find the new narrative that we're part of, that's part of our recovery process. And so for my roommate, that one was my roommate, not being able to tell herself a different story of what her life was going to look like. Like that's fine, but I had other stories waiting in the wings of like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I remember her saying like, oh, what would I tell my kid? I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to tell my kids. I'm going to say, Mommy had this funny idea way back when this happened, But telling new stories, I think editing has made me much more comfortable with other possibilities.
Well, it seems like editing, you have to be so comfortable with risk, and if you're comfortable with risk, you have to be comfortable with failure because it's the half of the two options. A lot of people were asking about what the editorial world looks like today. So, can you, publish a book without a following? How do you even get an editor? Has the landscape?
It's changed dramatically, but yes, you can. It's just it looks different than it used to. So the people, if you're actually like ready to start thinking about, if you're in the writing process, find a writing group, and there's a Blue Ridge writing group that you can join. I haven't been to that one, but a lot of the community writers groups are very professionalized, and they help you get your stuff ready for publication and sending it out for proposals. There are writers conferences that you can go to and meet with editors and get do pitch sessions with them, and they'll give you if it is marketable or not, and if not, like what can you do to change it. The writers market is still a thing. There's a hard copy, also an online subscription, and you can see all the publishers in the country, and they update it every year with because the changing landscape, right? Like all the big ones are still there, but the small ones come and go. And I have a chart that I show my undergrads that's like who owns whom, and so when you are opening, there's dozens and dozens of publishers listed, but they're all pretty much owned by the same 5 groups for the recognizable things. And then there's all these indie presses, and I love indie presses. And they might be, I don't know, they're not the Devil Wears Prada, like you're not going to get your face on the bus wrapped around, but they'll pay more attention to your book, and those are still highly competitive to get into. But if you can work with those groups, they care about the product. And then there's a bunch of groups that do like coach you through self-publishing. We still have the vanity predatory press thing. Like if anybody asks you to pay for your book, be very, very suspicious. But there's also no shame in doing some kind of self-publishing if you do it well. And there are a lot of freelance professionals at this point who like have worked in the industry for a long time who just really like doing it the right way.
I think we have time for maybe one more. Okay, so several people ask this in sort of different ways. Has your faith and your religion ever intersected with your academic work? Have you ever in the Bible, which is a field I'm actually very interested in? Have you ever found your faith intersecting with your work in interesting ways?
Constantly. My master's is religion and literature, so that was like from the beginning. They influence each other, thinking about those different things. But the thing that Ray and I were talking about on the way over was, so when I was an undergrad, I did go to this little religious school, and the Bible faculty were great, and I don't know, I was not shocked as I got older to realize that the Bible was edited, documented human history, right? It's fascinating for that, and like all the different, which I find very profane, and I find that you have these people over centuries who are coming together trying to like understand these, right? And they're doing it. Of course, we're working through words. That's how we do things. And so when I was working on my dissertation, I got to do a trip to Michigan, and the University of Michigan has the largest papyrology collection in the Western Hemisphere. And you know, we don't have first editions of like the handwritten stuff from the first century, because that's as far as we know, all disintegrated. But they had and the one that I'm thinking of, single piece of papyrus, and they block it between two pieces of glass so you can handle it. And they brought it out, and they said this was one they were bringing out for their undergrads a lot. Shock. But it's one of Paul's letters, and it's got line edits on it. It's probably from like 3rd or 4th century. I have a picture of it somewhere in my files. But just thinking like, I don't know, this like physical, again, I knew that this happened, but to physically hold it in my hands and to say like, oh, here are people trying to, again, like just make it right, you know? I found very, like it's.
Thank you so much.
We're going to close this morning with something benediction that we've been doing all month. May I be filled with loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness, and may we be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. Thank you for interviewing Catherine. Thank you all. May you fill this world with all that it needs. And we know it's not anger, hate, judgment. It is that love and kindness we just sang about. God bless you.